All right. Prospect profiles?
Sure.
Prospect profile. As we are telling you on every episode recently, we are getting down under the wire here before the October NHL draft. And so we are going into each and every possible, if not likely, Detroit Red Wings pick at 4th overall. These are any of the guys who you can reasonably see called up when Yzerman takes the screen, not stage, I guess. And the October 6th, I think they moved it to. Yeah, that's what it was, October 6th. So we're going to be diving into every player, not only who they are and what their play is like, but also how it would impact the Detroit Red Wings in terms of their future, the prospect pipeline, how likely that pick is, whether we would like that pick or not, and pretty much dissecting this thing from the top down. So this is going to be one of my favorite ones because it's one of the most interesting prospects in this draft in my mind, which is none other than Austrian forward Marco Rossi out of the OHL. Brad, take us away on Rossi.
No, I'm not starting this one. Ask Evan the question you asked pre-show. That's where we got to start.
This is fair. Yeah, that's a good point. I asked these guys, is there anything Marco Rossi can't do?
Grow.
It was one of those moments where I was like, shit, I wish we were recording. And Brad was like, that's good enough to honestly repeat it on air. Because Evan is right.
Yeah. Jack of all trades, 80% the height. That's Marco Rossi. He is... If everything goes well and everything goes perfectly for him, smaller Patrice Bergeron. He's great defensively. He's great offensively. Good shot, can score. Excellent playmaker. Excellent positioning. It is really easy to say he doesn't have any major flaws in his game because it's a cop-out answer, but he really doesn't. He's just 5'9". And there are legitimate questions about, okay, he put up 190 something points in the OHL, it felt like. Oh, but he is an overager for this draft. He's a late birthday, so we have to take that into consideration. How will that translate to the NHL? And that's a fair point. I don't feel he has the ultimate offensive ceiling that a Tim Stützle or a Lucas Raymond or a Cole Perfetti could have. But he's a better all-around player than all of them. But again, he also has a year of development on all of them, which is maybe the biggest wild card in his game because his size doesn't seem to hinder him at all, even though it's a concern. Very few sub 5'11" centers work in the NHL, and I've seen a lot of people suggest that Rossi go to the wing. I don't see it. His game's too well suited for the middle of the ice. Sure, he can get a little stronger and maybe getting a little quicker wouldn't hurt either, but I see him as a center. I would draft him as a center. I would develop him as a center. He's smart enough that if that doesn't work out, you can transition him to wing, and I'm sure he would get it quick enough. But it's so hard to get top two centers in this league. I mean, don't waste your opportunity. But I don't see Rossi as being an 80 to 100 point guy, perennial Art Ross candidate. That's not him. But neither is Patrice Bergeron. And again, not saying they're apples to apples comparisons, but if you're thinking of the type of player, that's all I see with Rossi. So I'm a big fan. As of this moment, I still have him in my top 5. It'll be very hard to push him out of it. I mean, if this is the guy the Red Wings draft, I will not be upset about it.
Yeah, I think I've watched more tape on Rossi than any other prospect. And I've watched an ungodly amount at this point. I've probably read more about Rossi than any other prospect, and I've read an ungodly amount at this point. And a lot of it was trying to poke holes in his game. And like you said, Brad, the guy just does everything. And I don't even think Jack of all trades, master of none is fair, because he's not just able to do all of these things. He's able to do it at such a high end, near elite level in some aspects. Nobody who is that good defensively, probably the strongest defensive top end player in this draft, almost definitely actually, should have the puck skills and the stick handling that he does. But the way he manipulates and maneuvers the puck in tight, and not just to, move around players, but to finish and to score and to create plays that lead directly to goals, you don't find those things on those two attributes in the same player. I think he's a good skater down low where it matters. I think he's strong on his skates. He has great edge work, so he capitalizes on the fact, or at least accounts for the fact that, yeah, he's only 5'9" or whatever he is, but he's strong down low where it matters on the ice. He's the guy you want on the penalty kill and the guy you want out there with a minute left in the game down a goal. I don't see a weakness in his game that scares me. Being small is one thing. I'm not afraid of having a player who's 5'9" but strong as hell on his skates. That doesn't matter to me. How many cases do we have to see in the NHL for these guys to succeed? Yeah, it might be less common, but what's a small player who's more likely to break past his height or physicality barrier? A guy who has the skill set that Marco Rossi does. And you're right, Brad. His skill set directly lends to him playing center, and that matters to me. I think the Red Wings need another top-end center. The Red Wings' ideal situation, we've said time and time again, is for Dylan Larkin to be their second-best center. That would be the dream for them. I don't know if Marco Rossi has that ceiling, and that, to me, is the biggest genuine holdup, which is his extra year of development as an overager. How much is that truly affecting our vision of him compared to these guys? Because if he keeps this up, and if after a year he's still pacing ahead of them, he'll be the steal of the draft. He will be. Because if he doesn't go if he goes, 5 or later, you're looking at a guy who maybe should have been a top 3 pick. Do you take that risk?
So here's the crux of it. And now getting into the point of the second profile here, which is how is this directly Red Wings relevant? So there's two ways to look at this with Rossi. One, he would almost be the best pick for the Red Wings if you want to go based on need. The Red Wings' biggest need right now is at center, and it's as a scoring, playmaking threat. And obviously the two ways a bonus. Rossi fits everything. He checks every box of what the Red Wings need up front right now. And Ryan kind of alluded to this. I don't know if Marco Rossi's ceiling is higher than Dylan Larkin. Whereas I look at the players around him in the draft, Perfetti, Raymond, Stützle, I could see their ceilings being higher than Dylan Larkin, if we're going to use that as a benchmark. And actually, in some of their cases, specifically Stützle and Raymond, I would hope that their ceiling is higher than Dylan Larkin, at least on the offensive side. The different positions, so not apples to apples, but you get the point. I think Rossi's a safer pick than any of them. So it's that old thing. How much money do you want to put on the table? Do you want a conservative bet, or do you want to go all out? If you want to go all out, you're taking Raymond or Perfetti. If you're like, you know what, we really, really need to hit on this pick, and if it doesn't end up being the best player at the pick, but it's reasonably certain he'll be very, very close to that, then yeah, Rossi's probably the best pick at this range. And again, I don't want to call him a safe pick because his ceiling is still very high. This is not a guy you are settling for. This is a guy where if you draft Marco Rossi at 4th overall, your expectation should be number 1 center. Now, the Red Wings are lucky. They have Dylan Larkin that they got at 15th overall, who turned into a guy in a redraft that would go 3rd or 4th in his draft. So if the Red Wings end up with 2 Dylan Larkins, you can win a Stanley Cup with 2 Dylan Larkins as your top 2 centers, and then Joe Veleno as your 3rd. That is tremendous center depth. And again, if Rossi doesn't end up being better than Larkin, that sucks, but then you're kind of juggling Rossi and Veleno for your 2-3, which again isn't a terrible problem to have either. It just isn't as high as you would hope for 4th overall, which is the question mark here and why Rossi isn't the obvious pick.
Yeah, I was just thinking what else I could possibly add to this conversation since every stone has been turned.
You got run over. I saw you lean forward to the mic, and me and Brad were just so excited.
I was just, what else can you really say, right? Like, you guys have kind of covered it all. I guess one thing to sort of point out is Marco Rossi isn't 5'9", 160 pounds. He is a semi-truck. He is like 185 pounds. So having that on a 5'9" frame is huge. So he is built, and he has that low center of gravity that does make him hard to knock off the puck physically. So that kind of, makes the height question a little less of an issue for me. Another thing that's kind of interesting is Yzerman likes those high energy, high motor type guys. And I think Marco Rossi is 100% one of those players, and it's at both ends of the ice. So if the Red Wings end up picking him, I wouldn't be shocked, because that's kind of Yzerman's MO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing with Rossi is exactly that he is the Steve Yzerman prototypical player. Anyone who has talked to Rossi or has watched Rossi or who plays or coaches Rossi always says or brings up that point. Like, this guy might be small, but he makes up for it, and then 100 times more with how dedicated he is. And you usually don't find that dedication in someone who has the natural skill and talent that he does, but that doesn't stop him. He's a truck. He is a motor. He is so damn motivated. He and Perfetti are the two most, this is a Steve Yzerman pick right here, just because of who they are as people. Perfetti is is recognized for his abilities on and off the ice. He's the Scholastic Player of the Year in the OHL, was it, right? That's the award? Recognized for academics. And that, those are the kind of character things that, not just for the Red Wings organization, but for Yzerman. He likes those guys who are going to give it 110. So yeah, that's something for me where it really does lend a lot of credence to, Rossi might be his guy. And then Yzerman was a GM in Tampa Bay when Point emerged, right? He's seen small players come in and be successful. So I don't know. He is not in the highest tier of likelihood for me in terms of how likely is this pick, but he's probably, let's say, exclude any of the big three that fall, and most people would say those would be automatic picks. Put Perfetti and Raymond 1A. I think Rossi's the 1B tier in my mind in terms of likelihood. I don't know what percentage you'd assign to that, 33, but I don't see Rossi being very far down the Red Wings board.
No, he will not. I give him a 25 to 30% chance. That seems like a really, really low percentage, but then you got to think I'm going to have Raymond and Perfetti in the 35 to 40 tier. It's not going to be crazy far off, and then I'm going to lump everybody else into the 2% tier.
Yeah, I'd say there's a 1 in 4, 1 in 3 chance of them taking him.
Yeah, and you know what? There's guys who, if they took him, I'd be kind of well, it's not who I expected, and I think that actually might be a mistake, all things considered. Rossi's not one of those. I would say, well, it's not what I expected, but I'm actually thrilled. I think this guy could be one of the most exciting prospects and the biggest I told you so of the draft. The way I see it is, we're looking at a guy and we're talking about, this is a guy who is a supremely talented offensive player, who's the most defensively responsible forward in the draft, who plays in all situations and produces at an insanely high level and has the best work ethic out of anyone in the draft. And then in 5 years, we're all oh my God, Rossi turned into this amazing player at both ends of the ice who has an incredible work ethic and is insanely successful. Who could have seen it coming? And then the retrospective answer would have been, well, it should have been everyone. The same way we're looking at it with Braden Point. And that's just that's what's in me. And it's not born of a lot. You can't really discount the fact that we are seeing an extra year of production and everything like that. But I really do think that teams, that's a big risk for teams that pass on Rossi. And I would wince if I was a GM that passed on Rossi and took a player who ended up being worse. But that's why I'm not paid to do it. For what it's worth, Bob McKenzie has him 7th on his list, and Bob McKenzie's board aren't his personal rankings. It's more of an assessment of where scouts across the league are ranking players. So this was as of the end of June, but Rossi is 7th. Raymond was 6th, Perfetti 5th, Drysdale 4th for context. So that's definitely subject to change. Anyhow, that is Marco Rossi. We are going to be doing more to come, including like a revisit of Jamie Drysdale within this new expanded scope. But for now, that is all for our prospect profile on Marco Rossi.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.